All right, today we're going to go ahead and get into section 4.2. We'll continue with median, altitude, angle bisector, and perpendicular bisector. Yesterday we looked at identifying them in pictures. Today we're going to look at solving them given equations in pictures. All right, so here we go. Let's do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. First, a median. All right, a segment that comes from the vertex, passes through the midpoint on an opposite side. So remember, median, we have our segment that comes down from our vertex. It hits at a midpoint, so it gives us two congruent segments. So this picture will turn us into congruent segments where the line meets the midpoint. All right, so we'll mark our picture with those tick marks to show those two pieces are equal. Anything else in the picture we don't know anything about. All right, here we go. In altitude next. In altitude is a segment that comes down from the vertex. All right, remember the altitude is perpendicular. So what does perpendicular mean? Well, it means it's going to form 90-degree angles. All right, so we're going to form two right angles. Remember, right means 90 degrees. All right, let's keep going. So if they give us altitude, we'll think 90 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and go over to angle bisector. All right, a segment that comes down from the vertex again. So we got down from the vertex, except this time it splits it into, it divides the angle into two equal angles. All right, so it gives us two congruent angles. So again, it's important that we can mark our picture once we're given the key word so that we know which equations we will be using in the actual picture. All right, let's go to the last one, a perpendicular bisector. All right, you'll notice it's a segment that passes through the midpoint of one side and it is perpendicular. So remember, perpendicular bisector, we have our segment coming down. It's actually going to do two things. It's going to form right angles, and it is also going to divide this bottom segment into two equal parts. So we get two congruent segments for the bottom, and we get two right angles. So perpendicular bisector does both. All right, so let's go ahead and move down and let's begin looking at how do we solve these based on a keyword they give us. Again, notice the markings of the picture. We want to do that before we solve anything. All right, here we go. DV is a median. There's our keyword median. All right, a median we know is a segment that drops down and splits it into two congruent segments. You'll notice this picture has four equations. However, I can only use the two equations that are on the marks that I made my tick marks on. So you'll notice 3x minus 1 has a tick mark, so it has to be equal to x plus 7. All right, we're going to solve this equation after we set it up based on the word median. If I subtract x, I'm left at 2x minus 1 equals 7. All right, if we move our 1 over, plus 1 on both sides, we're left with 2x equals 8. If I divide by 2, I get x to equal 4 for the first part. Now, you'll notice this question asks us to find x and AI. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'm going to look and plug it in. AI is this whole entire line. So that means I need to plug it into both equations and then add them up. All right, so let's plug it into this one first. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 1 tells me this is 11. Well, if I plug in my 4 here, 4 plus 7 tells me this piece was 11. They better be the same because they were equal. So to find AI, I'm going to take 11 plus 11. Well, that tells me the second part of my answer, AI, equals 22. All right, let's look at another one. Number 2 says it's an altitude. All right, so altitude we know that it forms 90-degree angles. So you'll notice I have three equations, but the only equation I can use is the one that's near the 90 degrees. We know that that has to be equal to 90. So I'm going to pick the equation by the 90-degree box and set it equal. I am then going to go through and solve it. Let's subtract 4 from both sides first. We're left with 2x equals 86. Divide by 2, and it tells me that x is 43. Now remember, we're usually not done after the first part like that, so we've got to go back and check what do we have to plug it into. Well, notice this question says find NAC, so if I trace N to A to C, I'm talking about this big angle here, so I need to plug it into both of those. So let's plug it into both. I'm going to plug it into the first one. 43 plus 11 tells me 54. If I plug it in the second one, 43 minus 7, which will give us 36. Now to find that whole angle then, I'm going to take my two answers that I got after I plugged it in and I'm going to add them together. 54 plus 36 tells us that our other angle would have added up to 90 degrees after we plugged it back in. So again, we solve for our x, or our variable, by plugging it into the picture, and then go back and plug in to solve. Here we go. Let's do another one. It's a median. All right, median, we know that it hits and splits it into two equal parts, so I can put my tick marks. It wants us to find x and then find Li. So first we'll solve it for x, and then we'll go back and plug it in. The tick marks have to be equal. So 6x plus 13 equals 15x minus 5. All right, we're going to go ahead and solve this. Let's go ahead and move our x's over. Minus 15x minus 15x. I'm left with negative 9x plus 13 equals negative 5. All right, I'm going to subtract 13 over. I'm left with negative 9x equals negative 18. Divide by my negative 9 on both sides, and I should turn into a positive 2. Remember, we should get positive answers or decimals, no negatives. Now, the second part of the question said find Li, so here's the equation for Li, so we're going to plug it in. Li would be 8 times 2. So Li will be 16. All right, here we go, number 4. Number 4 gives us a keyword, altitude. Find x and Li again. Altitude is going to form 90-degree angles, so that's the only thing I can mark. All the other equations are here to trick us, but the 9x plus 9 is the equation that is now, by something that I know, equals 90 degrees. All right, let's solve it for x. Subtract 9 from both sides. 9x equals 81. And now when I divide by 9, I get x to equal 9. Now again, check what else we have to find. It wants us to find Li, so let's go back and plug in. Here's Li. So Li equals 8x. Well, let's plug in the 9 for x. So 8 times 9 will tell us that Li equals 72. All right, so median tick marks, altitude 90-degree angle. All right, here we go. For this question, we're going to find x and y, and then we'll try to go back and plug it in for LR on the side if we have room. Now, keyword is perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular bisector does two things. It forms 90-degree angles by where it touches, and it splits it into two congruent parts. So I'm going to be doing two separate equations here. To find y, I'm going to take 15y minus 1 and set it equal to 6y plus 8. We are going to solve this first. So minus 6y from both sides. All right, I'm left with 9y minus 1 is equal to 8. All right, let's add our 1 over. I'm left with 9y equals 9. Divide by 9 and we get our first answer, y equals 1 for this problem. Now you'll notice I also have to set up an equation to find the x. Well, we know the x is next to the 90-degree angle, so to find x, I'm going to take 7x plus 13 and set it equal to 90 degrees. I'm going to solve it by subtracting 13 from both sides first. I'm left with 7x equals 77. If I divide by 7, I get x to equal 11. So we got x and y. The last part said find LR, so you'll notice LR is the line over here, so I need to plug in my x and my y. Well, x was 1, so I'm going to plug in a 1 here, and y was 11, so I'm going to plug in 11 there. So this will turn into 2 times 1 is 2, 11 times 5 is 55. 2 plus 55 tells me this side then would be equal to 57. So perpendicular bisector does two things to our picture. All right, let's do another perpendicular bisector. Again, I see the key word. We're going to find x and y and then plug it into SR. Remember, we know that it forms 90-degree angles. Also, remember, perpendicular bisector forms tick marks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and solve for x first over here on the side. 6x minus 2 has to be equal to my other red tick mark of 7x minus 9. All right, let's solve it. Subtract 7x from both sides. I'm left with negative 1x minus 2 equals a negative 9. If I add 2 to both sides, I'm left with negative 1x equals negative 7. Divide by negative 1 and we get our first answer of x equals 7. Now to find the y over here, I'm going to take 4y plus 20 and set it equal to 90 degrees because we know that perpendicular bisector forms 90 and two congruent parts. Now, if I solve this, I'll subtract 20 from both sides. I'm left with 4y equals 70. If I divide by 4, I get y. Ooh, and I'm sorry, this was a 14. It's a 14. I couldn't see it in my picture. I apologize. So y should equal 5. Let's erase part of that so we can see the equation. All right, now we got x and y, so let's go back and plug it in. X was 7, y was 5. That will turn into 7 times 5 is 35. 5 times 4 is 20. 35 plus 20 tells me that SR had to equal 55. All right, let's keep going. We'll get to the last couple. Angle bisector. So find x and find NR. Angle bisector makes those equal. All right, so I can mark the curls and I can mark those equal and I can go over and solve for x. 3x minus 11 has to be equal to x plus 5. All right, that's because of angle bisector. Let's solve it. Subtract x from both sides. I'm left with 2x minus 11 equals 5. Add 11 over. That'll give us 2x equals 16. divide by 2, and we get x to equal 8. Now let's go back and plug it in, make sure we plug it into both. It wants us to find NR, the whole thing. So if I plug in an 8 here, 2 times 8 is 16 plus 6 tells me that piece is 22. If I plug in 8 here, that tells me this piece was 15. So to find the length of the whole thing, I'm going to take 22 plus 15, which will tell me that NR had to equal 37. All right, we got a couple left. Here we go. Number 8 doesn't give us a picture, but we're going to draw it and label it. And then we're just going to solve it. And for now, we're just going to solve for y. All right, given MA is an angle bisector of triangle CAR. So first, let us go ahead and draw a triangle CAR. All right, so if I draw a triangle CAR, and you can label it any way you want, CAR. It says that MA is the angle bisector, so I'm going to connect a line from the A to the other side and call that M. All right, now we are going to begin trying to label our picture. CAM, if I trace those 3 letters, I'm talking about this angle right in here, is 3y minus 4. If I trace MCA, you'll notice it's this angle right here. That's 10y minus 22. If I trace MAR, you'll notice it's this angle right here, which, if we label it, will be 4y minus 17. All right, you'll notice we have 3 angles in this picture, but only 2 become equal with the word angle bisector. Angle bisector splits these 2 into equal parts. So to solve it, we are going to take 3y minus 4 and set it equal to 4y minus 17. All right, let's go ahead and solve this. Subtract 4y. I'm left with negative 1y minus 4 equals negative 17. Add 4. I have negative 1y equals negative 13. Divide by negative 1, and we get y to equal 13. All right, so label your picture. Angle bisector splits 2 equal angles. All right, let's do one more. I notice the keyword angle bisector, so right away I know those 2 angles have to be equal. It tells me AXL, so if I trace A to X to L, I'm this opening right here, and it says 10x plus 6. If I trace L to X to E, I'm talking about this opening here, which would be 4x plus 36. It says that AL, the side, is 2x plus 1, and it says LE is 5x minus 7. We know from angle bisector that these 2 angles have to be equal. So to solve it, we are going to take 10x plus 6 and set it equal to 4x plus 36. If I solve that, I'll subtract 4x over. I'm left with 6x plus 6 equals 36. If I subtract 6 over, I'm left with 6x equals 30, and now we just have to divide by 6 to get our x. X equals 5. Now, the other part of this wanted us to find AE. We'll go back and plug it in for our last problem. I'm going to plug in 5 on this piece and 5 on this piece, and then add them together to find the whole line AE. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 tells me this piece is 11. 5 times 5 is 25, minus 7 tells me it's 18. Well, if I want to find the whole line, then I'm going to take the first part, 11, plus the second part, 18, and that will tell me that the whole entire line of AE should be equal to 29. All right, so mark your picture accordingly. If it says angle bisector, we're curling the angles. If it says median, tick marks on the side. If it says altitude, 90-degree angles form. And if it says perpendicular bisector, two things happen: 90-degree angles and congruent segments. We'll do some practice now.